Today we talk about Stradivari and Guarneri, but Edgar style. Stay tuned. Hello, back again. We are today here in Cremona on the main square, Piazza Roma. And we talk about Stradivari and Guarneri because it's a very nice square, especially in summertime, because Stradivari and Guarneri both actually worked in this area. But only Stradivari made it that his thumb of him is here on the back side. I don't know if I can show it well, but more or less in that area of this picture, there is the thumb of Stradivari. There are some people next to it sitting, probably gives them a certain tranquilizing feeling to sit next to it. And it's not his grave there, it's just the headstone of his grave, which they found in the downstairs in the Museum of Cremona. And they made a print of it, and now they made this monument. Interesting that regarding Guarneri, there is very little. There is just over there, the Via Guarneri, a little 2 buildings over there. There was my lawyer, Guarneri, and the mother of my wife, her family name is also Guarneri. If you take the yellow pages or the white pages of Italy, a phone book, and you look for Guarneris, it's just like looking for Ferrari. But if you take Stradivari, there are very few of them. But from Stradivari, there is still some people living here in Cremona, and there is Antonia Pfeiffer Stradivari. She is living here. If you're lucky, you will even find her walking around, and she looks pretty much like these paintings and from Stradivari. From Guarneri, even so I put an image of Guarneri on the thumbnail here, we don't have any serious reliable source that he looked like this or like that. Beside that, actually I would like to point out a few differences between Stradivari and Guarneri as a point of view as a violin maker. There are so many stories about it, and if you see the movie of Stradivari and how he worked and what he was a maniac and was yelling in his workshop and all this, I think they made a nice movie with Anthony Quinn about it, but reality probably was a little bit different. If I look at the work of Stradivari, it is very clean, sophisticated, and there is a clear line through his entire career of violin making. Stradivari became so precise because he came out of town into town, so there was no Stradivari existing, started to work completely in a different direction, a completely different profession, and was actually a wood decorator in carving small decorations on probably mainly furniture, and was next to the workshop of Amati, and very likely made all these decorated Amatis already at the past, and then throughout this work at the age of 38 years started to make instruments. Stradivari was born in 1644, I think. On the gravestone there is written 1648, 46. It's not very clear because there are different fountain sources of his age when he was born. Now we take 1644 because on one of his latest instruments made, he wrote even his age, and that we take as a serious fountain. So when he passed away, he was 93 years, and that was in 1737. So he became very old, while Guarneri became a little bit less old. Guarneri was born, I think, in 1698 and then passed away in 1744. So he became 46 years old. About Guarneri, there are a lot of strange stories going on, that he killed somebody, that he was in jail, that he was a drinker and whatever. For sure, let's leave these things and just look at some details. When he was born, up to 23 years old, was actually working in the workshop of his father, learning the trade, then disappeared for 9 years, and then 1631 he returned into the workshop of his father. The workshop wasn't doing very well, and then he worked for 13 years from 1731 to 1744, and that was his last year before he passed away. So he made all what we know, which we can tell he made in these 13 years, but very likely before he worked already with his brother and with his father father together, probably helping. Maybe he didn't put his name inside, whatever, you know. It was a completely different work in the very beginning, then the big break, and there you can make up your mind. I don't want to tell that he was in jail or that he did this or that. Fact is, he came back and he was married. So in jail, I don't know if at that time you could marry. And then he worked, okay? Becoming 46 years at that time was a normal age. So imagine how they perceived Stradivari. He was super old, yeah? Another tiny detail between Stradivari and Guarneri. Seems strange that we have so many things and details about the life of Stradivari and so little about Guarneri. And the secret is actually a very logical matter of fact that even nowadays, if you are famous and well known while you are living, you probably have an Instagram account, a Facebook, so they collect a lot of information. Just take a superstar, VIP, you automatically have more information. While Guarneri came from a workshop, a family not so wealthy, they didn't work up all that. The father had financial problems. That's something we know about the workshop, which we didn't do very well when they were working in this area. So little has been transmitted about them. And so nowadays you don't know anything for sure about them, you know, except born and passed away. So that makes the whole thing a little bit more mystic about Guarneri. Stradivari was already very famous when he was alive. He had his golden period, 1710, 1715. That was his best life. He made a lot of money. He was rich. We know about his testament, how many buildings he had. He was renting them out. He was wealthy, while Guarneri had financial problems and working ahead. So he was forced to do things quick just to make his living. And if you look at Guarneri, people talk that he is just such a drinker and a rough person, whatever. While I, as a maker, if I look at it, I just see a constant improving. You can see that he was under time pressure. He had to do it very quick. But if you look at it, there is a clear sign how the instrument has changed over the years from Guarneri. Even Stradivari changed to his personal model, from Amati to his personal model, but in a different way. A little bit more cautious, a little bit more accurate. Now, since he wasn't famous, nobody cared about Guarneri, and only at the time that Paganini started to play with his violin, he became famous, and then people certainly started to look at Guarneri. More or less, I would say we have finished here. On this square, what is a little bit a pity, if you look around, all the buildings are rather modern. The closest building, which is at the time from Stradivari, is actually after these ugly buildings, the building behind, which is the building where I have my workshop in. But this here is like this because at the time of Napoleone, it has been bombed, this square, completely. So nothing left. If we go to the statue of Stradivari, I would just like to give you an impression of the face of Stradivari. Look the statue and you see a little bit the lines of the face of Stradivari. And I think that this is very reliable, that he looked like that Stradivari. This square is the main square, Piazza del Duomo. When we talk about it, it's in front of the cathedral, next to the tower, the tallest church tower of Italy, 114 meters high. If you turn around, all these buildings, actually 90% of the buildings, existed already at the time of Stradivari, Guarneri and Amati. And that's why when they made the film of Anthony Quinn, they put it here, a lot of sand on the floor, but they were talking about it that at the time of Stradivari, there was already a nice floor, like similar to what it is, not like this, but there was not sand as it is. They made it a little bit more super fancy, yeah? But this is, they had it in common, okay? So they went into the city hall and into the church here. I think this is a great place to be. And as a final conclusion, actually, from this video, which I just want to point out without comparing one to each other, there were two completely different lives, a completely different way of approach to learn violin making. One got into it because of a great craftsman and then started with 38, 40 years to become a violin maker. And the other one just learned it as a trade at his father's workshop, then even left it for a few years, and you could make up all your myth and fancy story about Guarneri, but we don't know anything about him. So we can actually say it's just like nowadays among human beings. It's the character and the way of how you solve problems, your character, your way of being, which actually influences where life is going to bring you. And the same is with Stradivari and Guarneri. And that's the key point. You are interested in this kind of videos, you want to know more about specific makers. Should I research a little bit more and make videos about a single maker? Yes or no? Let me know if you think this is interesting. Leave your comment, give me a like, and I know most of you're not subscribed yet, so subscribe. I'm pretty sure it doesn't cost you anything, okay? And it makes me happy. See you next time. Ciao, ciao, bye-bye.